times. We are back again with the second season of Lil-Lets Talk. Dr. Zenda, you're our regular gynae. Welcome.
Love it. I love this place.
Right? Absolutely fantastic. Megan, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nstako?
Thank you, thank you.
Wanga, how are ya?
I'm good, and yourself?
Fantastic. Ladies, I want to welcome you to our new set. It's vibrant, it's vibey, it's gorgeous. This is where we shot our BU campaign. Just to give you a bit of background on the BU campaign, I mean, you're part of it.
Yeah.
Megan, obviously.
Yes.
The BU campaign is all about us embracing our individuality. No 2 days or 1 day in our menstrual cycle is the same. And we're all different. And we need to embrace that. And also, we need to also learn to understand our bodies and make better choices for our bodies and understand which products work for ourselves. So the choice is ours, and our menstrual cycle is literally our oyster, because that's our world in this space here. Ladies, welcome. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
So.
Very big subject that we're going to get into today. Period pain. The pain of being on your period. I think society, and when I say society, I want to break it down and get into our households, right? In our homes, we make so light of period pain and just the pain of being on your period. Before we get deep into the physical pain of things, just the mental pain of it, the emotional pain of it. It's a bit of a drag to get into your menstrual cycle. It's a bit of a drag to maintain yourself when you are on your cycle. And it's very heavy on us. Now, what more when it comes with excruciating physical pain? Megan, I want to start with you. You have a story and a half where, you know, physical pain throughout the menstrual cycle is concerned. Please take us through your story.
So I've always had like quite painful periods. And then I think what happened with me is that I started feeling gaslit at home because my mom never had painful periods. So it became this thing where she sort of thought I was exaggerating, right? So it became this like kind of a very dangerous psychological space in a way, because I was denying my own pain. I was normalizing it and saying,
why would you do that? Why would you do that? I mean, I'm quite interested because you started your menstrual cycle at the age of...
I was 15.
You were 15,
yes,
right?
late bloomer, yeah.
Already at that age, and you're only new at experiencing your period.
Yeah.
What taught you? What conditioned rather than taught? What conditioned the mindset of denying your own pain?
Well, I think definitely as a young girl, you know, a 15-year-old girl, we normalize period pain to a large extent. We think we must just kind of get on with it. And you don't want to appear as if your period is getting you down. And I think that's like something that so many of us need to condition ourselves out of, is to learn that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to need to rest. It's okay that you're in pain. But if the pain is debilitating, you don't have to live like that. And I think for me, my big journey was after childbirth, where I feel that was like the pinnacle for me of pain, being ignored and being gaslit, you know, while in labor. And I think after that, I made this like resolution not to accept menstrual pain, which was debilitating yet again after birth. And that's when I sought out a diagnosis.
What was your diagnosis?
I was diagnosed with PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, which made a lot of sense. And it turns out it's actually in the family as well.
Of course. Now, Megan, I want to take you back to when you were a teenager. You grew up with this myth that smaller girls experience smaller periods.
It was kind of sort of this thing just bandied about. And I don't know if it was like sort of like being in white households or if it was just this weird myth or something. But it was absolutely like, okay, well, you're little, so, you know, you can't get heavy periods, you know.
Really?
Yeah, and it was this...
that is so weird.
And I don't even know, I can't pinpoint the person who told me. It was something that I absorbed. It was an environmental thing.
I get that.
And, you know, I just kind of thought, okay, well, this can't be heavy then. I mean, like, I woke up and my bed was just covered in blood and my, like, you know.
Is that what you thought when you woke up and you saw blood on your bed?
Everywhere.
Like literally everywhere. And you're saying to yourself, no, but this can't be heavy.
And being told, maybe by relatives, you know, that because they hadn't had heavy periods, I could be having heavy periods. It was this assumption made based on our inheritance, our genes, you know, that if no one else has struggled with heavy periods, you're not either.
You're nothing special. How did this affect your relationship with your menstrual cycle?
I think for a long time, I just, you know, I denied that I was in pain and, you know, I just medicated and whatever. And I think definitely has kind of twinned up with my mental health journey. You know, and definitely exacerbated my depression and anxiety. And I think less the pain itself, but more that experience of being gaslit, of not being heard, of saying, I'm in actual pain, I want to stay home.
We all get heartbroken every now and again. We all feel pain every now and again, but don't invalidate what I'm going through on the basis that everybody else goes through it. Because we go through it on different levels and different grades. I mean, you're a medical expert. How do we even begin the conversation with people in your field to say, but like, stop the gaslighting though?
Oh, Dineo, that is a big one. And I must say, funny enough, I became a gynae because part of it was when I was pregnant. It was that thing where the doctor did pretty much everything correctly, but I didn't feel seen. And it will take a while.
That's big. You didn't feel seen.
No. It was my precious moment with my daughter, and yet they just got on with it. And I realized how much of that was missing from us as clinicians.
There's this huge get over it mentality, right? Throughout PMS, throughout your period, you're in school, you're a working woman now, it doesn't matter. How do we normalize PMS? How do we normalize eradicating that get over it attitude?
Yeah. We have to get to the bottom of understanding, why do we go through that PMS? Because there's actually a science behind that.
Why do we go through PMS? I like that. Why do we go through PMS? Because I'm 37, going on 73. And I still don't know why we go through PMS. What's the science behind it?
So not every woman will go through the symptoms of PMS or premenstrual syndrome, but literally at PMS, that's when your body drops all the hormones. So when you're ovulating, that's your day 15, you are nice and bubbly, the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
But it literally, if you have fertilized or you've had, intercourse and you want to fall pregnant, that's an important time where fertilization will happen.
Yeah.
But if you haven't been sexually active, for example, that PMS, your hormones drop, and what was the lining of your womb gets shed out. Think of Mother Nature or trees. A tree doesn't uproot itself when it's winter and goes where there's summer. But in winter, it sheds its leaf. It doesn't give anything to anybody. Every single resource goes to self. It goes to the root. And so it's a time where we're supposed to be reflecting as women. You actually have less hectic PMS when you are isolated by yourself, reflecting, journaling.
This is so true.
And it doesn't mean you can't work.
I can
Thank God
vouch
for
for
work
that.
from home.
Yeah.
You are actually more productive at that time. You are nurturing yourself, you are filling yourself up, and then as soon as your period starts, the next cycle starts, you are able to give of yourself, and so your body is always whispering wisdom. It's not a dreaded thing, PMS. It's a way your body tells you, slow down, you need to replenish. And if you are somebody who is pregnant, it's the most important time of the formation of that early stage of a pregnancy. Slow down, your body's doing something important. So we should stop and listen.
It's shocking how we are also ignorant as a society, and women included. Because I mean, many women don't understand what goes on in their bodies at the time of their periods. They only identify with the pain, they identify with the shame of it, they identify with the awkwardness of it and the discomfort of it. To actually normalize these processes that you're about to go into growing up, right? And to normalize heavy periods and living with all of that. I mean, you're young, Nstako, radiant, enjoying the prime of your youth, which I envy. Oh my gosh. Was it comfortable for you growing up to talk about your period? Did you have people to talk about it? Let's hear your experience.
I started my period when I was 12.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a funny story. I fainted, right? Yeah, on the day I started my period, and then I took a nap and I woke up with like a whole lot of blood. And I had the worst periods every month, so much so that even my school knew that for 2 days, at least every month, I'm missing school because the first 2 days I could not get out of bed. And my period would last for 7 to 11 days. It was the worst because the pain would kind of lead to my legs. So I couldn't necessarily walk because every time I walked, it would get worse. I used to change my pad 5 times a day. Yeah, I don't know why I'm not even the ambassador, because the way I water every month. And I used to throw up. I used to eat a lot, but I never gained weight. I just used to eat like a lot. Like I'd never feel satisfied. I used to faint half of the time, so you'd never really make me stand up or do anything. And it was just this stillness that I could not do anything when I'm on my period that really bothered me after matric.
Was there an official diagnosis for what you were going through?
No, it was just, you just have bad periods.
Hectic. Let's talk about the clarity here.
Yeah.
Right? Let's define a normal period versus an abnormal period.
Yeah. So a normal period, and it varies. First of all, a cycle can be anything between 21 and 35 days. That's your full cycle from day one to the end and start off the new one. And then in terms of the actual menstrual period, it shouldn't be more than 7 days. Anytime your period goes longer than 7 days. In fact, I even say 7 days is a lot.
It's a stretch,
you know, but
It's a
if
stretch.
you're having like light in the beginning, heavy in the middle, and light again, we can handle it. But things that you can look out for is things like bleeding heavily, having to change your sanitary, whether it's a towel, a tampon, or a cup, whatever it is that if you're having to change it a lot more than usual, anything less than 4 hours of changing, that's quite a bit. I don't know why we kind of think bleeding from our menstruation is not coming from our flow of blood. It's still blood, it's bleeding. And if you're losing too much blood at a time, it affects what we call hemoglobin, which in terms of how you feel, your energy levels are low because you've got less red cells that are transporting oxygen in your body. That means you're not functioning as well, you're not your best self. With things like people who have got fibroids, you know, they can bleed quite significantly, and that's not okay. Go and get it checked out. You know, sometimes your hormones will go up and down, and it will change your cycle a little bit. If it's persisting for more than 3 consecutive periods or cycles, please go and get that checked out. I've always thought going to see a gynae or a doctor should not be because something is wrong. It should just come naturally to say, oh, I need to go and check my things and make sure that they're okay. Discuss how your period is, because very often people sit with heavy period with very low HBs and they don't even know it. They sit with pain and they think it's normal.
It's normal.
Well, my aunt went through it, so and so went through it. It's not normal. Pain is common, but it's not normal.
Wanga, I'm going to come to you. You're currently living with chronic pain due to your endometriosis.
Yes.
And you're young. I mean, you're 23. When was this diagnosed?
I was 17. I was still in high school when I was diagnosed with endometriosis stage 2.
What were your symptoms? What caused you to try and figure out what was going on?
So when I missed my period for 10 months, it was very tricky, very confusing, because everyone around me thought I was pregnant. My mom thought I was pregnant. Everyone was just like, oh, you're sexually active.
Wow.
And I wasn't at the time.
I want to talk about, you know, the shame and stigma that you went through from your mom and the people around you when you didn't have your period for 10 months, and them, you know, being so presumptuous and assuming that you're pregnant just because you're not having your period. You see, it speaks to how ignorant we are and how uneducated we are about our own bodies as females. How did that make you feel? Talk to us about, you know, what you went through during that time.
For some reason, for someone that wasn't sexually active, when people made me feel like that, especially in high school, because at some point my doctor did give me contraceptives. So when I got that, a lot of girls were discriminating me at school, saying that, okay, I'm taking contraceptives because I'm sexually active. So at some point I hated sex and I didn't even know what it was. So I was like, no, I'm not having sex. No, this can't be me. This is not why I'm sick. You know, I had to explain myself way too much for that age, which made me feel very uncomfortable. No one I knew from home spoke about periods. No one I knew from high school spoke about periods. So it was a very tricky time in my life. I hated a lot of stuff, so I kept to myself.
Wanga, this is a lot. This is just a lot. Detail for us every single painful experience that made you stick out like a sore thumb because of your period and because of endometriosis. It was the crutches and what more?
When I think it became a reality where first year when I didn't quite understand, because before it became endometriosis, it started as ovarian cyst. I had multiple ones on both ovaries. But still, when I was told that, I did not understand. Like, doctors don't give you much information. And if you don't ask, or if they don't create a safe space for you to ask, you will not ask. And I think the turning point was the faintings. I used to faint a lot because now I was known as the girl that has epilepsy, because no one understood why I was fainting. And I think also the turning point was when the institution, the university, said I am a student with a disability. I was just in and out of casualty, in and out of hospital. And it was just the worst years of my life because no one understood, you know.
It must be so confusing. You don't understand. No medical expert around you understands. People don't understand. Nstako, can you relate?
150%.
Yeah.
Except for I'm just really shocked, you know? Just the fact that people are able to kind of just sideline somebody going through an experience instead of embracing her and saying, listen, how can we help you do this? I mean, the fainting, I can relate. I mean, 1 minute we're walking in a school corridor and Nstako's on the ground with a school bag. It's almost like a blackout moment. You have no idea what happens. And I mean, people can tell you that, this happened in 20 minutes. You feel like you were down for like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
The cysts are a nightmare. I had 11 cysts. 11. 5 on one ovary, 6 on the other.
What size were they?
Golf balls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you imagine, like, on my
11
body?
of those, yeah.
Yeah. Those are a nightmare because sometimes they pop. And Wanga and I talk about it a lot, actually. One of them popped, I think, 2-3 months ago. When it pops, it literally feels like someone just ran to you with a knife and just jabbed. Yeah. You kind of just go into like this paralyzing like pain. It's a nightmare.
How old were you? When did you get your endometriosis diagnosis?
I was 17 as well, turning 18. I was just out of high school, and the reason why like my parents took it seriously is because they kind of thought I was going to grow out of it, you know, understandably so. And then, it started affecting my work life as well, because I jumped into work life, I jumped into varsity, so it's kind of like, okay, I can't miss days because there's no one there to pick up work for me.
Of course.
And I went to the gynae, and the doctor diagnosed my endometriosis like I had a cold. Like, oh yeah, you have endometriosis, here's medication, go home. I've done probably 5, 6, or 7 treatments.
Dr. Zenda, what's endometriosis, and why is there no compassion, empathy, care to go deeper, right? And what makes it different from having a normal period?
So endometriosis is when you get literally tissue from the lining of your womb going back and sitting everywhere else inside your stomach. The common places would be down at the bottom, what we call the pouch of Douglas, on your ovaries, on your intestines. Sometimes people would even have them pop out on their umbilicus. They can even be seen on the cervix, on the vagina. But now when you are having a normal PMS, having a premenstrual pain, your womb is contracting. But wherever, for somebody who's got endometriosis, wherever those little tissues, imagine you just threw rice inside your stomach, those tissues will contract. The big difference with it is that, first of all, a lot of the normal period pain will happen just before your menstrual period starts. As soon as your period starts, the pain also generally will subside. It will also respond quite well when you take simple things like rest, use heat and take just painkillers. It responds. With endometriosis, they have pain before the menstrual period starts, during the menstrual period, and after. And it's also not just associated with it's a painful period, but there are other things. Being in that much pain causes some sort of mental not being okay, because pain is depressing. Yeah,
of course.
Pain is depressing. It's compounded when you don't feel like people understand what you're going through, because everybody compares you to what they're going through. We are all biased to what we go through. I think the most unfortunate part is when doctors, we know better. We should be doing so much better.
How do I know to tell the difference between normal and abnormal that I need to seek help now?
Yeah.
What's that line that I need to draw in my experience to say, if this happens,
yeah,
it's a lot? I definitely can't wait for my next period. I go now.
Yeah. I'm actually quite impressed that they were diagnosed at such an early stage.
Yeah.
A lot of people who struggle with endometriosis don't even get the diagnosis until it's like halfway into their reproductive lives. So the symptoms, the cardinal one is pain. And that thing that I explained, that if it doesn't respond to just basic analgesia, and also if it's debilitating in such a way that your whole life is literally dysfunctional during that time, get it checked out. Secondly, look at what's happening in your family, because it is associated with your first degree family members, you know, the females in you. So check what happened with your mom, which is something we often don't look at. So it's very familial. The way to diagnose decisively on endometriosis is to actually put cameras inside and have a look, right? So this thing of people being sent from pillar to post on this painkiller, that painkiller, and that, it's not okay. Also, if it starts treated at a younger age, you minimize the damage that happens over time, which can be quite, drastic. Something I think we're not paying a lot of attention to. With pain, first of all, you can't function, which means you can't show up as your best self. But also secondly, sexual health. People who struggle with endometriosis in particular, there's a real difficulty in terms of sexual function. And then the damage that happens because of the inflammation that happens is things like subfertility, so struggling to fall pregnant when you get to the time where you want to start a family, or if it's really gone in terms of the grading, it's quite severe. A lot of people will struggle with conceiving.
I saw you nod there, Nstako.
Yeah.
Is this something you're relating to?
Yeah, I think I'm really experiencing endometriosis now in my 20s, because dating gets a little bit real. You know, it's no longer the fun, jumping between different people. It's more about wanting to settle down and build a future. And for me, I treat my womb like it's my daughter, So I know when she's feeling okay. I know when she's not. I know what to do to make her happy. I know what to do to make her sad. Sexually, it really is about... I know it sounds really like laissez-faire to say it like this, but you have to find that one partner that really gets it, because they need to be super patient. I mean, some of the things that my partner and I do, we have a policy in our relationship: she comes first. It started with a lot of conversation, started with a lot of experimenting, what works, what doesn't work, and we've just found something that works. But in your 20s, it gets really painful, because you also have to talk about the kids. How many kids do you want? What's your expectation with children?
And fertility is a problem in this regard.
Exactly. And
poses a problem.
Yes, I've had to make the decision that, I'm 22 now. I had to make the decision that in 3 years I have to prepare for my first child. That was a conversation. I come from a black family. I needed to sit down like my mom and say, listen, if I pop one out now, I'm not a disappointment to the family, okay? And, I think also the family has come to terms with the fact that I will bring a child earlier into the world, but even that requires 1 year of hormonal therapy. So there's a lot of mental work, and the fact that it's almost like the decision has literally gone off your hands, The decision now is according to what your womb feels like.
I think everything that Nstako said is exactly more or less what I'm gonna say. It kind of feels like endometriosis forces you to settle. You have to make these tough decisions. I think with my experience before I found the partner I'm with now that's very, very supportive, doctors would make me feel like it's also a myth where they say when you fall pregnant, your endometriosis will go away. So I was really pressured and put into a corner. Dineo, at some point, I told my parents, I sat them down. I'm like, you know what, I'm 19. I'm ready to have a baby because I want this pain to end. So the person I was dating at the time, I begged him, Dineo, I begged him. I was like, just
Really?
give me a child. I want this to stop. And then I realized, with the more research I did, I realized it was a myth. It's, there are women who have kids and the endometriosis worsens, or it's still there. So those type of things are very, very important. So like Nstako said, it's very important to find a person that really understands.
Let's talk about mental wellness, right? Let's talk about mental health. Ladies, I mean, you are all living with some level of, well, more on this side of the fence, living with chronic pain. Do you have chronic pain?
I wouldn't say it's chronic,
Yeah.
but I would say my periods are painful. There's unusual sensations all over my body.
Yeah.
There's constant discomfort.
Yeah.
And it's kind of always put down to, it's just PMS and it's your periods again. Even though there is kind of that sense, there is a diagnosis, and things like, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
We know how it is. There isn't time to rest.
No. Yeah.
I want to go lie down and I'm asked to go play or, just fix something up or whatever. And
Do you
then
feel
it's
like
work.
you're losing it sometimes? Like your mental health, how do you look after it?
Oh.
What impact does this have on your mental well-being?
I've been medicated just with my mental health for about 14 years now. So
Yeah.
I haven't known life without antidepressants for that long. But I definitely find that I get a lot of almost dysphoria around the time of my period. My ADD gets worse.
Yeah.
And then it is so heightened around the time of my period that then this just becomes this time that I'm dreading, because I know I'm not going to be able to get in that clear space where I can create and connect and make the things I'm making. And it definitely takes its toll.
This is very tough because I'm still struggling with my mental health. If I can just give you a brief summary, I'm very extroverted by nature. Like, I love people, I love socializing and stuff. When I was diagnosed and, the whole stigma and people misunderstand, we are misunderstood because the pain is very internal. Sometimes you can look good, you can feel, you don't feel good, but you look good. And no one really believes you when you say, listen, I am in pain. I was taken to the hospital, and that's when I was diagnosed with mild depression. And my life kind of changed after that, because I realized that not only does this affect you physically, but mentally a lot, emotionally. People don't realize that it's like an umbrella. It has a lot of segments. Endometriosis has a lot of segments. It's not only physical, it's social as well. I became very isolated because it was like, no one understands me anyway. I tell people, please take me to the hospital, and people are always like, but you're always sick, you're always there. So it forces me to suppress it so I can go on. But finding, I think finding someone like Nstako, she's my friend. She, after speaking to her about my condition, and after realizing that I'm not alone, I feel like, surrounding yourself with people that understand has made my life much easier, but it was a struggle.
Now, Nstako, your mental health and your mental well-being, how are you dealing? How are you coping?
This reminds me of 2018. I'm generally a hype person. Like, I'm really bubbly, on the go. And in 2018, things really flipped. I wasn't as bubbly and happy. And the thing is, in my family, it's very noticeable if I'm not as loud as I am right now.
Yeah.
And we went to the doctor and they said, no, I have depression and anxiety. And everyone was like, but she's not depressed or anxious. She's literally the last person. And my gynae said, well, the reason why you're experiencing this is because of your endometriosis. Your hormones are so imbalanced that your happy hormone is no longer, in use. So I had to go on antidepressants to feel normal, to get treated for endometriosis.
What?
Yeah, I was no longer the person who loves going outside, who loves just being in the sun. I just hated everything, and I was just so anxious. I was nervous about nothing, I was just constantly anxious. When that, cleared, when I finally finished the medication, then I had to jump into some serious treatment for my endometriosis, which resulted in a surgery. And when you said put the cameras in, that literally made the scar that I had tingle again, because I experienced that. I've got 4 incisions on my lower abdomen, 1 in the belly button, and that's where they put the camera in, and the other incisions was for the ovaries and the womb. And then, they had to scrape off my endometriosis.
Good grief, Doc, this sounds so invasive. Oof. Outside of our periods, when we're throwing up and experiencing pain, and I never thought of it like this, when we're throwing up, experiencing pain and so forth, we put in alarm bells on that pain, and we create space for us to address that pain. But when we're on our periods and we're experiencing those symptoms, we normalize that. It's so weird though.
Very.
We should not. We should actually put alarm bells on that as well and look for, deeper meaning to those symptoms.
Yeah.
Let's talk about PCOS, right? What are the defining symptoms that would make you say, woohoo, something's wrong?
Yeah. So again, the flip side of your period or your cycle being at least 21 to 35 days, if you are not having a period regularly, that's one of the flags for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Polycystic
Ovarian syndrome. So your ovaries have got more cysts than they should be having. There's 3 things you look out for. In terms of, you look under ultrasound, you have to look at those ovaries, what's happening to them. How you feel, start noticing things like hair in a more male distribution. And they may even have a breakout of acne. It just means you've got more androgens, which is male hormones more than you're supposed to as a woman. And then the last thing is looking at your cycle. When you're not having a regular cycle, because what polycystic ovarian syndrome does is it causes you not to ovulate. And that's why people who have got PCOS will often struggle to conceive, because if you're not ovulating, releasing the egg, that means you can't fall pregnant.
Well, I mean, look, I have to thank you, and I think on behalf of all of us, for being one of those medical experts that are doing your part to advocate for such subjects. And also, you're part of our Lil-Lets family as well, and people can still engage you on the Lil-Lets platform. It's so important for us to form a part of a community that is compassionate. And I love the fact that, Wanga, you mentioned the fact that, your partner is compassionate, and you do have a number of compassionate people like Nstako in your circle of friends, an empathetic community that makes talking easier because, it's built within an environment of safety. You belong to the Lil-Lets Talk community. Let's talk about your role there, Megan, and how you're contributing there and how people can feel safe with you when they visit the Lil-Lets Talk platform.
My biggest thing is we need to show compassion. I think, as menstruators, so often we just think about the bleeding. And what we do on the platform is commiserate, educate, and really just build that sense of community around the whole menstrual cycle. Because knowledge is power. Knowing what's going on in your body is power, and being able to reach out to someone, even if you're just getting a sympathetic or empathetic me too. There's power in that. There is power in feeling heard, in feeling like you belong, and that you're not the only one.
So basically there's power in community. You young ladies are up to absolutely amazing work. Wanga, I'm going to start with you. You are 23 years old. You've registered an NPO. It's called Fem Project SA. Tell us a little bit more about that project of yours.
So my organization was birthed after my cancer diagnosis. It was a very tough period of my life. And I think you don't really understand cancer unless you go through it, unless a family member goes through it, And not a lot about cancer is spoken about. We just know your breast cancer because there are walks and stuff like that. But with your cervical and your lung or whatever, it's not mentioned. I started to see that, okay, I'm not normal. Something is wrong with me. I might even die.
Wanga,
I had to drop. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you there. I'm finding that you're a very layered person where your health is concerned, because we just had a whole conversation about your endometriosis, and here you are dropping yet another bomb of, cervical cancer.
I think when I had to drop out of school because I was so sick. That was the worst time. That made me realize that, there's so many women out there that are just like me, but that don't have the supports. And that's when my organization was birthed.
Absolutely.
It was birthed out of so much pain, but it has brought so much hope to so many people. In South Africa, there's not much awareness about cervical cancer, not much awareness about endometriosis. The stats are shocking as well, And I realized so many people die not because it's their time. Sometimes it's just the lack of financial resources that end your story. And my story, I was fortunate enough that I was able to tell it even with so much pain. So that's how my foundation or my organization was birthed. I focus on spreading awareness. I use my story on all social platforms to educate people on their bodies.
I want to hug you. I just want to give you a hug.
Thank you.
And I just want to, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You've gone through so much and yet you remain so selfless. So much has been taken from you, but yet you still have so much to give. Yeah. I just literally want to hug you and I'm so proud of you. What is the importance of support and community to you within the diagnosis that you live with now?
I think naturally humans have a very dependent, feeling to them. I think one man can't really stand alone. As much as a lot of us like to isolate ourselves and feel like, I can stand alone, we really do not function like that. We're very codependent as people. And having a sense of community assists you in understanding yourself as well, that it's not just you. There's other people. I mean, you think about it on a small scale. I mean, if you say, I'm feeling so bad today, and someone retweets and says, oh my gosh, same, you feel like, oh my goodness, I can actually empathize with you. And with that, you empathize and validate yourself. So community is not just about having the people there, but it's just about the fact that your pain is validated, your situation is validated. I mean, Wanga sometimes will call me at midnight, oh my gosh, I feel sick. I call her, oh my gosh, I feel sick. And it's just being able to have someone to validate my experience and the pain just makes it so amazing. We always say it's a strong woman because you can endure a certain level of pain. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
So once we can actually talk about strong women from a perspective of what you do and the place that you're in your career and your education and how you even value yourself, then I feel like we've won as a community.
Yeah. Megan? Phew. Let's talk about normalizing pain.
Normalizing pain.
Right? I mean, pushing through the pain, hey?
Yeah.
Just showing up and not showing up.
It goes back to what Nstako said about strength, and this importance being assigned to suffering in silence and not complaining, because we have this toxic positivity culture of, health is number one, happiness is number one, positive outlook is number one. Or in actual fact, a lot of people aren't in that space. And that's okay. This is a human experience.
Yeah.
So normalizing pain, I just hope that we can show people today, on platforms like this and platforms like Lil-Lets Talk and all these incredible organizations that everyone is running, that you should listen to your body. That we often have that instinct that something is wrong, and that we needn't suffer silently and alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Let's normalize the pain. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
If you're going to put alarm bells on pain on any other time of the month, put alarm bells on pain at that particular time of the month of your menstrual cycle. I think to everybody else, you can visit lil-letstalk.co.za and ask questions. There's Dr. Zenda there, there's Megan there. Ask as many questions as you can. It's an umbrella of trust. It's an umbrella of safety. It's a community that you can feel safe in. And I think from this entire conversation, I'm going to walk away with this. When you touch a woman or strike a woman, you don't strike a rock. We need to cancel this thing of saying watintumfazi watintimbogoto. There are fragile beings here that are dealing with heavy medical conditions that have lifelong effects because of what we see as a simple menstrual cycle. So we are not rocks.
No.
Absolutely not.
Not at all. Refuse.
We are not imbogotos. We are not to be striked in any way or form. We are flowers. When crushed, we become fragrant. We are eggs. We break. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This was absolutely fantastic, absolutely amazing. Wanga, virtual hug. Cheers, my honey. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your stories. I think we all appreciate it. We all do.
Yeah, thank you.